Hi guys, yeah, I think I'm live now. I'm just waiting for Chloe. Okay, there we go. We're just waiting for Clover. Oh, there we are, Clover. Where are you? How do I get Clover now? There we go. I think that's it. Oh, it says waiting. Okay. Oh, good. Hi. Hi. Oh, it stresses me out every time I do this. Like, oh God, I forgot to press that bit. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. It's a solstice, so I got up really early with my daughter and took her up onto the ridgeway near to where we live and saw the day breaking, and it was incredibly rainy this morning.
Yeah,
but I love the solstice, and I love that feeling of being up, really early before anybody else. And yeah, so I'm good. But I did go back to sleep again actually as well when I got back into the house at 5 a.m.
Were there lots of other people up on the ridgeway?
It was a pretty small gathering. There was about a dozen people, I should think, on it, but it was absolutely pouring with rain.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
God, it's weird to think it's a solstice. What's happened?
I know.
God.
I know.
The other thing that's weird is I suddenly realised we are going to talk about being a mother and how that is on Father's Day.
Oh yeah.
Just like, that's really weird. My husband said, "Why are you talking about mothering? It's meant to be all about me today." Anyway, listen, I've been so excited about talking to you about your amazing book. Somebody told me about your book about, I don't know, must have been early February, I think. And right. She said, you must read it. You'll absolutely love it. And I didn't really know what to expect, but I absolutely loved it. Couldn't put it down, couldn't speak to anybody. And that was when I wrote to you and just said, God, it's just an amazing book.
It's so nice to hear. It's so lovely having that kind of knowing that it has that effect on people. It has been really lovely, and I have had, I've had amazing responses via. It's one of the wonderful things about social media, being able to talk to other women about it and knowing that it's sort of helpful to other women as well, to make them feel seen and for their voices and their thoughts and so on to be kind of recognized. I love that feeling.
But it's just, the thing is, it also just helps other women feel normal.
Yeah.
All the things you talk about so incredibly honestly, I don't think other women talk about it. Quite a lot of women probably don't even talk to their best friends about it because it's so personal and so brave to talk about things, your kids, and sometimes you love them, sometimes you don't love them, sometimes everyone, I think no one wants to talk about that. I think it's just so brave to do that. But I wanted to ask you, what made you want to do that?
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Well, I had my first child when I was 24, and I'm now 44. So my eldest is 19, and my youngest, Lester, is only 3. And I've got 5 children. They're 19, 16, 7, 6 and 3. I have to think what ages they are because I slightly forget sometimes. But I was kind of holding baby Lester in my early 40s. And people would say to me, "Oh, you're an earth mother, or you're an old hand, you're a pro at this." And I really didn't feel that at all. I still felt as kind of overwhelmed and overawed and deranged and exhausted and confused by it, as I basically had done in my 20s. And I was really interested in that kind of, is what I'm feeling the kind of the intense kind of spiritual transcendent love combined with this like bone-breaking boredom and claustrophobia and sometimes kind of violent darkness? Is this is this what other people are feeling? And I chatted more and more to friends about it, and also Instagram's been brilliant. I would do posts about it, kind of talking about the darkness of it, and people would really respond. And I just knew that I like writing about feelings. I like writing about, why we feel the things we do. And it just seemed, really obvious that motherhood should be the thing that I could really go into. And also I read A Life's Work by Rachel Cusk when Jimmy, my eldest, was born. And I couldn't actually find another book, you know, since then, really, that kind of expressed, and actually even A Life's Work, it's about babyhood, and also it's very, very dark and it's very negative. Whereas I wanted to kind of combine the real light and the dark, and this feeling of the transcendent joy and the sort of the, you know, the real peaks and the troughs, and how motherhood takes you from those places, not just in the course of a single day, but multiple times within the course of a single day, single afternoon, single hour, single minute sometimes.
Yeah.
It could go up and down.
I know. I mean, I've got four, but my age difference is a bit less than yours. Mine's only 9 years, but your age, I mean, your span is 16 years, isn't it?
Yes, it's just under 16 years. Yeah.
I
So
mean, that is. Let's talk about that a bit, because I mean, actually, that's quite hard to get my head around, because I think nine, it's okay. It's okay, because actually my youngest, who's 18, and my eldest is 26, 27, 26, are very good mates. They definitely are good friends, which but I wondered if it was longer than that, would they be? You know, so I got a couple of questions about that. Is how has your mothering changed when you've got to Leicester? And also, how do you, I mean, obviously lockdown, you've all been, you know, we've been gripped to your Instagram and seen that you know, it looks like the perfect bohemian family, but as we all know, it probably isn't as perfect as it might seem. It doesn't. Yeah, so tell us a bit about how you think it might have changed.
My parenting, I think, has changed in that I think that with each child that you have to relinquish control. You have to relax control for any kind of sanity. And I had Jimmy and Dolly in my 20s, and my life was pretty chaotic then. I got divorced when they were really young. When I was about 27, I was a single mother, and they were a baby and a toddler, and I was working very hard as a journalist. And what I remember of it was that I was actually quite well organized, and I would get them into bed in the evenings because I had to work. And now I have to say, you know, 20 years later, my kind of routines and so on are probably pretty much non-existent, because I find it just basically impossible with so many children. And you know, your energy and your kind of you know, honestly, your sort of appetite for mothering, also how long can you keep it up for? It is really, really tiring. And there are moments that I love it, but the kind of you know, the relentlessness of the domestic work and supper again and the washing that needs to go it's not fun. It does kind of wear you out a bit. So I think that my mothering has probably got more relaxed. And I think, you know, when my children, when they were younger, I worried endlessly about, are they all the normal things to start with? Are they, you know, are they rolling over at the right time? Are they sitting up at the right time? Are they reading at the right time? What's their handwriting like? And with each child, seeing them as individual people, I find really, really interesting. You know, you have an idea about having children, and then you kind of realize you have individuals, you have each individual person, and they're all incredibly different, and you have to bring, you know, different kind of skills, I suppose, and a different mindset to each child. And particularly my daughter is really, really heavily dyslexic, and it's been so interesting kind of bringing her up and her extraordinary, she's an incredible sort of generous, intuitive, funny, creative girl. But you can't like look to the normal, is she reading at 6, you know, is she, what's her grades going to be like? And I think that that's really, really useful as a parent, thinking, you know, you can't kind of just apply a set of rules as to how this should work. And that's one of the things I write about in the book, actually, this idea of kind of being elastic and being sort of, motherhood requires you to be supple in the way that you think. That was the word that I used. And I think that's really, really important, to keep on seeing them as individual people, not just a bunch of children, I suppose.
Yeah, but in each, certainly, I mean, each child has its individual needs. I think in every family that is the case.
Yes.
But it's interesting. I mean, I kind of my eldest think I am so pathetic and soft with my youngest. They're just like we just never have got away with that. Never have got away with that, which is probably true. But I know that it was a bit in your book where Dolly obviously went to on the bus to Oxford and she didn't call you for 20 minutes or something. I so recognise that. Like, oh, Jesus, where are they? Where are they?
Where are they?
Yeah. But by the time you got to the fourth, I'm like, well, I'm sure he's fine until something, it's a weird thing.
And I
think,
think,
Clover, do you, I know when your mum had her accident when you were only 16, do you think that any of your mother's kind of style of mothering from what you can remember before the accident, have you kind of replicated any of that?
Definitely. I mean, I think it's really interesting because speaking from my own experience and many people's experience, you have kids, you think you're going to do it your own way, you think you're going to, do something maybe a bit different, and I had, had two children, and I was a single mother living in Oxford in my 20s, and then and at that time I was doing a lot of journalism, and I was quite kind of determinedly trying to sort of not mother like my own mother. I grew up in the country with a lovely big drafty quite bohemian house and ponies and a big garden, and then mum had this awful riding accident when I was 16 which left her totally disabled and brain damaged, and I think for a while when I had my own children in my 20s, I just wanted to work really hard. I wanted to make my journalism work, and it was good fun, and I was sort of doing a different kind of parenting. And then when I met Pete, my second husband, in my early 30s, and we had another 3 children in quick succession, and I found at that point my desire to get back out to the countryside, for example, and bring horses fully back into my own life as well as my children's lives became this like overwhelming need. It was so like something pressing up against glass or something. I felt I've got to get out into the countryside, and I've got to kind of give them some of those big free landscapes that I had as a child. And I think I'm really, really interested by the imprint that we have as children, and whether we replicate that and how we take it on. And I mean, my mum hugely influenced me. She didn't work, but she had lots of children. I'm one of 5. I'm the youngest of 5, and she was incredibly loving, and she made us feel, particularly me and my sister, who's closest in age, Nell, who died just before Christmas, but she made us feel as though she gave us a huge confidence via her love. It wasn't via education or academic achievement, although that was something that my dad was really keen on. But mum loved us really, really, really deeply. And I think that gives you like a bedrock of confidence to feel as to who you are. And I think if I'm trying to give the kids anything, it's not the house in the country, it's not the ponies, it's like that feeling of love, basically. And that feeling of love that they can take forward, because life is going to be hard. And I mean, that's what I write about in the book as well, is life is going to be hard. You can't make an easy life for your children, and would one want to anyway, but to give them love, gives them confidence, and a sense of self, I hope. So I think that's what I've really tried to replicate from my own childhood.
I mean, I guess you having lost Nell very recently, and I know how close you were to her, but how have you, I mean, I saw on Instagram that actually you went and had a picnic on her grave.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that's amazing. How have you kind of helped the children to kind of deal with that, in terms of knowing that life throws you dreadful things?
I mean, I think that I'm very, very, as you can probably tell from my writing, which is very, very open and very confessional, I've always been open with the kids about, for example, what happened to mum. And mum lived for 22 years with really profound brain damage, and she was in a nursing home for 22 years. So Jimmy and Dolly knew her in that state quite well. The younger children can't really remember her, but so I've always talked to them about that, and they've always been aware of that, and they are very aware that I am my emotions are quite close to the surface, and I do live with quite a high degree of kind of trauma, I suppose, really, and it's there in my life. And you know, and then Nell had cancer for 4 years, and so we all knew that she was that she was having to have a lot of treatment, although her prognosis had actually been very good. She'd been told she was going to live for really quite a lot longer, and then she died very, very suddenly. So it was really shocking. But I am really, really interested by kind of bringing death into life, and how to sort of honor death in some way or another, and how to kind of not to try not to be scared of death, or try not to feel like this is life gone terribly wrong, but this is life, you know. It is part of the way we live. And the last 6 months have been so hard. Losing my sister has been so hard. But I think the thing of talking about her a lot, of course, doing things that she loved. I mean, when I was up on the Ridgeway this morning, Evangeline and me were talking, I was wearing her coat actually. Me and Evangeline were talking about her and going to her grave, and, you know, we had a picnic there, and trying to keep a sense of the things that she liked, and the things that she said. She'd say, oh, this is fun, isn't it, if we were having a picnic or something like that. So just sometimes we sit down and I say, oh, this is fun, isn't it? And it's just the kind of trying to manifest something of her, because that sense of continuance is, you know, passing the baton on, I suppose, passing the love on, is sort of the point of life, really, isn't it? And so I suppose, yeah, it's being alive to the fact that death will come. I think it's really important to talk to children about the big stuff.
Yeah, my mother died when I was 24, very, very suddenly, in 4 days. And the result of that is that I kind of feel like, she always used to say, for God's sake, just get on with it, do it. And, you know, and I think I really feel that let's just get on with it, because it might not be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
We need to grab life now and do what we want to do, so that you don't, there's no kind of regrets, I guess. And I try to get my children to kind of think, come on, let's just do it now, not overthink it too much, because if you overthink it, you know, you could keep overthinking, be, you know, dead tomorrow. Still thinking.
Do the stuff, do the stuff, and try and live in a kind of courageous. I like risk taking, actually. I like living as much as possible, because I am aware that it is going to be over quite soon. And to kind of, I actually love I love the Nike slogan of "just do it." I think is a really great.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, you are a risk taker. I mean, I read The Wild Other after this book, so you definitely are a risk taker. There's no question about that. But with that in mind, would you encourage them to be as wild and as risk, because you were pretty wild for those people that haven't read it, but it was pretty wild.
Yeah, it was quite wild. I think you want to encourage them to live. You know, they have to take their own paths. And it's interesting with Jimmy, because he's 19 now, and he's trying to work out, he was supposed to go to university this year, but because everything that's happening, he's having different plans. And I was like, why not go to Siberia and go and like live in Siberia or something? Why not go to, and he doesn't necessarily want to do that. He's got other plans for adventures, but like kind of allowing him to find his own adventures as well. But I think encouraging them to find the thing that they love is the most important thing, and to find something that they feel really strongly about. And that could be, you know, that could be anything at all. But if you're doing something that you really believe in, that really, you know, that makes you feel alive and makes you feel good, you don't necessarily have to take risks to do that. And Jimmy really loves art, and in fact Nell really encouraged him with his art as well, and trying to encourage a kind of sense of getting good at something. You know, Mum actually really encouraged us to get good at riding. We rode loads as kids, and horses have provided both me and Nell with these like amazing kind of passports into different worlds. For Nell it was circus, and I went off and did rodeo and lots of different horse stuff. But I think, you know, I want them to have interesting, exciting lives, but I want for them to be their lives as well. You know, I think letting them go, not dictating to them as well, is really, really important too.
when you talk about letting them go, I was very struck by a particular bit in the last, I think it's the last chapter of the book, where you're watching Jimmy and kind of thinking he's going now. He's kind of grown up, and actually, oh my God, don't we all think that? Actually, it makes me even cry just thinking. But weirdly, that there's the real juxtaposition that, you know, the last 3 months I've had all 4 children at home, very much here.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, we think we'll look back on it and go, God, that was just a very, very special time. I think, but you know, even my 26-year-old, she's got a job, she's happy, and you know, I'm so thrilled to be letting her go. But at one point, I just want her in my arms and back. In fact, I remembered, I actually bribed my boys. I remember when they were quite small, they were about 14, 15, because they're quite, they used to, in fact, they still do quite a lot of hugging. Anyway, and I said, I actually will pay you a lot of money if you promise me you will keep hugging me. I don't want any embarrassment, anything. Just keep hugging me.
Yeah.
And one does, and one doesn't. But one is so wants to hug me. It's such a lovely thing. But watching them go is hard, isn't it? It's hard.
It's so interesting as well, the thing of we were with some friends yesterday, and they've got 2 small children, and my 3 little ones were there, so it was 5 small children. We were all quite knackered as parents, actually, and we were saying about how weird it is, because you know that when the days of them being little are past, you also will look back and miss this time as well, and that feeling of having to let them go, and you want them to go. I want Jimmy to go out into the world. It's a great joy to see him developing as an adult like that. But it kind of, the sort of pain that you feel of the exhaustion of them being little, but then wanting them to grow up is kind of like the whole, encapsulates the whole kind of dichotomy of motherhood, basically, of how it pulls you in these different directions, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. Oh God, completely. But how I'm absolutely fascinated. So you wrote that book when Lester was a year. How do you remember all the stuff? Because everything you write about, I'm sure most of us have absolutely know that happened. But I couldn't actually remember till I read it in your book. I'm like, yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because when I wrote The Wild Other, and The Wild Other, the first book is, it's basically all of my life from when I was a child through to when I was, when, I was about 40, basically. And I think that when you sit still with, I think that there's a muscle memory that you can kind of develop, and the longer that I've been writing in this way, and I've been a journalist for 20 years as well, but the longer I've been writing, I've written 2 memoirs now, but the actual process creatively of kind of sitting really still and really quiet with your memories, I think it's a bit like getting fit. I'm sure that you can access more stuff, because if I just think, oh, what happened then, I couldn't quickly recall it, but there is a kind of, and I think that's part of the sort of the beauty of creativity, I suppose, when it happens and you're in the zone, you're in the place. But so I think it is through a lot of hours spent concentrating on what really happened. And I was writing it when Lester was a little baby, and I had been, and that's kind of the immediacy of the book that I wanted, was this sense that these things had sort of only just, I was kind of writing them in real time as it happened. I was writing them as it happened.
But no diary, you never did it. I mean, I can't remember when you got time for a diary, but
I randomly write notes to myself. I send myself text messages all the time with the little notes. And when I wrote The Wild Other, I kept finding diaries of when I lived in Texas and when I went to Russia, and I'd fall on those. I'd just be so relieved to find all these pages of stuff I'd written. But I don't have a kind of writerly habit of doing a diary every single day. I wish I did, but I just not really. I just don't have it. But I do. But I am aware now, and I remember reading Joan Didion actually saying, if you want to be a writer, you have to write the details down. So even if it doesn't have to be paragraphs and paragraphs, but just little details about the feeling of something, the color of. I've got quite a strong sense of memory as color. and writing, you know, writing those little details down, I think is really
Oh.
important. Yeah.
And when you, I mean, when I design a new collection of jewelry,
Mm.
I'm always really nervous about, are people going to like it? Is it going to work? Is it, you know, is it going to sell? All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Did you feel like that, having written the first book to the second book? Were you nervous about it, or?
I was really nervous, and it was a really hard book to write, actually, because motherhood is a big formless thing that starts and it goes on and on and on. It doesn't really have a shape. And so, and as I was writing it, I thought, you know, sometimes I've written about what my childcare was, or my feelings of anxiety about going to a baby group, or my boredom at being at the school gates. And I thought, is anybody really going to be, you know, is this sort of worthy, I suppose?
Yeah.
But and it was a really, really hard book to write. But then when I started, you know, I started sending it out, my editor read it, and a few other people read it, and I got such great feedback so early on. So when and obviously it is very, very confessional. I write very, very honestly, not just about motherhood, but also about female friendship and about sex and desire and marriage. And that's quite nerve-wracking, to put your marriage out there in a really, really honest way. But people have loved it so much that it's an incredible experience, because as a writer you spend so long, and I'm sure when you're designing jewelry as well, you spend so long on your own thinking about the little details, and then seeing it going out there and kind of flying is just an incredible.
There's nothing better when when it's something's worked. It's absolutely fantastic. But the writing about sex and all of that, which you write very, very, very vividly. How, I know you said Jimmy's read some of the book, but out of interest, how are you worried or concerned in any way about when the others get older and they may or may not read it? My children don't read half of what I will do, or look at half of what I do.
Yeah.
But are you concerned about that? Or I mean, what about Pete? How did he feel about it?
Pete's really amazing. He's a really amazing man, and he's a really amazing husband. And because in my first book I also wrote a lot about previous relationships and desire for other people, and there's a sex scene with the cowboy and a pickup truck in my previous book, and so on.
Yeah.
And I've also written about desire in my second book as well, for him, but also for other people. And he's Pete, we're really, really close, and we talk about absolutely everything. So he was reading stuff. I mean, the second book, he actually read it when I'd finished it, before it was submitted, but when I'd finished it, he read it. And there were times when it was difficult, you know, we had some difficult conversations about it, but he does believe in my creativity and my kind of right, I suppose, to express things, and he loves the way that I write. So he's very, very generous, and I'm really aware that he's really generous, and he you know, I wouldn't want to say allows me to do it. I can do what I want to do, but it's not a problem within our marriage. But with the children, I think it's true. I think your children are kind of generally not that interested in your career, I think, first of all. But of course these books exist, and I'm sure, well, if my mother had written a book, I definitely would want to read it. And I think that what I think about both books is that there is a thread of absolute love through them. So even though I've written in this very, very open way, I'm not really saying anything that I haven't sort of said in normal life anyway. You know, as I say, when I talk, I am very, very open, and they're used to hearing me having very kind of intimate conversations with girlfriends. I like getting down to the real stuff as quickly as possible. And so I don't think, you know, there's some sex scenes, they might not want to read those, but
well, because children don't even want to think about that. You know, they assume that the parents don't have sex. God, let's not talk about it.
Well, I gave my second book to my brother actually for Christmas before it came out, and he said, "Oh, I just had to quickly pass through those pages. I didn't read the pages, those bits." But I also think that when you say, like, this is me, and you kind of, you know, say, I'm not hiding anything about myself, I'm not holding anything back, and if you are not trying to settle scores, or you're not being nasty about somebody else, and that you are because I do really think that the books are written, they are me, they're utterly my voice, they're utterly the person that I am. And I guess I feel confident enough, I think, in my parenting at the moment and my relationships with my kids. And you know, my relationship with Jimmy has been really turbulent, and I've written about him being expelled and getting into endless adolescent trouble. But what teenage boy hasn't got into endless adolescent trouble? And the more that parents and mothers can be aware of that and talk about it, the better off everybody is, basically. And I think that's what I feel about that, really. I think it's just so healthy to be able to talk about stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's why it's been such a success. It's absolutely fantastic. Now we're going to talk about jewellery a little bit, because I read that lovely piece you wrote for The Spectator, I think a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
About how jewellery means so much to you and the memory. Just talk to us a bit about that.
I can see my brother's comment. Hey Tom, there's my brother there.
Well, you say you didn't skip past those pages.
I love jewelry. I mean, I don't have anything that's the jewelry that I have is stuff that I have kind of, it's a bit like the books, you know, around my house. It's stuff that has grown up with me, things that have given people. The books that I keep, I don't keep every single novel I've ever read, but the books that I really, really love, or the books that somebody's given me that, you know, really, really means something. And it's the same. It's the same with jewelry. And I wear lots. I've got lots and lots of rings on. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 rings on, and each of them are. I've got my mother's wedding ring, and I've got a ring that I bought at a horse fair with this traveller I was going out with, which I've been wearing since I was 17. It costs very little money, but it's one of those rings that's kind of, your skin has slightly grown around it. I can't really get it off anymore, even if I wanted to. And I love when I'm driving, for example, I absolutely love the feeling of you know, in the car and on the steering wheel, I can see all these rings, and it's like a story, it's like a narrative.
It's such as, and funny that, and rings are such a lovely thing, because they're one of the very few things you could admire on yourself as a piece of jewellery.
Yeah.
So it's when you're so right, the steering wheel, you're kind of thinking, yeah, God, and so much memory, and it's so evocative.
And I wear all these. I now wear so many gold necklaces, and I've got, Pete gave me one with the children's name on, and I've got a crucifix which I love, and I've got a beautiful piece which is one of your pieces, and I just love that feeling of the layers of, you know, and some of them might be little things that they're not valuable things. There's the one I bought here which was 15 quid, one of these chains, and it doesn't, but it's part of the kind of, it's almost, it's emotional, but there is a sort of armor feeling, like if I'm not wearing my necklaces, then I feel a bit less dressed, I suppose, as well. And I've got a bracelet with all the children's names on that my sister-in-law gave me, and it's also that thing of something physical to hold on to and to kind of keep hold of, and
stroke, and that's that tactile thing that you can't enjoy anymore.
Definitely. And in fact, last year I was talking to Nell, who died before Christmas, as I said, and but we were talking last summer, and I was feeling quite low and anxious at the time, and she said, oh, it's not really about jewelry, but it reminds me of that the need to hold on to something physically. She said when soldiers came back from the war, they were sometimes told to put pebbles in their pockets if they were feeling really anxious and strung out, because it was just a little thing to kind of hold on to. And I've got this little I've got a little string of beads which I have in my handbag. I don't know where they came from. They just turned up in my life about 20 years ago, and those have to be in my bag. And they're absolutely, you know, they're not of any value at all. But that kind of thing of something physical. It doesn't, and also jewelry doesn't disintegrate as well. It's always there. I love that. That's what's
so important about, you know, 18-karat gold or real jewelry. The fact that it's real is so important, because that is going to be there for the next generation and the one after that to talk about the memories. Oh, my granny Clover, we used to wear this. You know, it's so important.
Definitely. And it's quite funny actually, because my youngest daughter Evangeline, she loves all my jewels, all the ones on my fingers, and she all the rings, and she quite often sits on my lap and says, which of these rings do you think I'll be able to have? Which one's Dolly, who's my 16? Which ones of Dolly's going to have, and which ones will I have? And she's definitely like got her eye on them.
That's quite early. That's quite early days, actually, to be doing that. Mine definitely do that. I go to my drawer. I'm like, where the hell is my jewelry? There's no jewelry in here. And then I come down for breakfast and they've all got it on. Anyway, so Clover, what's next? Because you know what are you going to do next?
Well, you know, I love, it's interesting because I've been a journalist for 20 years. I love journalism, and I'm writing pieces. I just filed a piece for the Sunday Times magazine, actually, which is coming out in next week or the week after, I think, about lockdown and what that's been like. And I love journalism, but I have to say, creatively, the thing of like really getting your teeth into a big project and living with it for a year or 2 years is really, really deeply satisfying. And after I wrote the first book, it's funny when you write a book. So I wrote the first book and you know, it was well received. And I thought, well, I managed to pull that off. And then when you write a second book, you think, well, I've managed to do that again. And because as a writer, you feel it's natural to lack confidence, I think. And, you know, am I really a writer? Can I really call myself a writer? And I think I'm beginning to feel, having been making my living as a writer for 20 years, I can call myself a writer now. But I've actually just filed to my agent a proposal for a new book that I've been talking with the publisher about. I'm also aware that the book needs to, like, it needs to get legs. It needs to not be a toddler anymore. It needs to be an idea that is actually walking on its own before I can start saying this is what I need to sell it and know that it is a real idea. Because you also, so I have a very definite idea for a third book, but yeah, it needs. I know that also if you talk about the idea too much, it's so fun talking about it that you can kind of talk it out of existence, basically.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's so interesting you say that, though, about not really thinking of yourself as a writer, because I think so many people think, and until about, I mean, I've designed jewelry for 30 years, you know, and as you say, you know, yeah, we started Links of London, so we managed to pull that off, and I'm like, oh, thank you, you know, that's a good because I never really thought I'd be able to do it again. But I only really could call myself a designer, I don't know, maybe as recently as 4 years ago.
It's so interesting because you know, your jewelry is so beautiful. You've got a beautiful shop, and it's I think but that's about creativity, really, isn't it? And it's a kind of like slight.
I think it's about being a woman. I think,
a woman, really.
Do you know? I think it's about being a woman. I think the fact, you know, actually, I think if I was a man and I'd pulled one off, a bit like you with the book, you know, think, oh well, I could probably do the next one. But I think women are not inherently confident.
Yeah,
I don't think.
Possibly, yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I'm really excited to do a third book. And clearly so are other people looking at those comments. But anyway, so what do you reckon? A couple of years?
Well, if it all goes to plan, then it wouldn't. I mean, I've got to write it, and then there's always a long period between finishing a book and then it's about a year until it comes out. So fingers crossed, maybe in 2 years' time. I don't know. I feel worried even saying that, but
I know.
I think I feel excited about the idea. I feel excited about the idea. I've been thinking about it a lot. It's living in my consciousness, and I know it's stuff that needs to be said. What I'm articulating in this proposal is stuff that I think that people want to talk about and want to think about, and I'll tell as soon as I've sold it, I'll definitely.
Oh yeah,
I'm
dying to know. Okay, and look, one final question. So, homeschooling or no homeschooling? Okay, so
well, I don't know. When the lockdown happened, I was really enjoying homeschooling. I thought, God, it's just like this enables me to see motherhood in a whole new light. I've got this. It's like standing on a table and looking at this very familiar room from a completely different angle. I have to say, 3 months into it now, it's but I do think it's interesting. I think it's incredibly interesting, and I think this time that we've had, as you said, is so valuable. The time that I've had with my teenagers as well, you know, them being here all the time, they've kind of, you know, it's all easing a bit, I suppose. But I wouldn't completely and utterly write off me doing homeschooling, but I have to be able to work. That's the problem. My work is, I have to financially, but I also have to spiritually and creatively and emotionally. I have to. And if there was a way of combining the two without going completely nuts, then possibly. But I don't know. I've got the summer to decide. I suppose.
Yeah, you have. All I know is I am so relieved that my children that they're all left school 18. I mean, if I'd had to do homeschooling, I think actually there would have been murder in the house. I mean, just literally murder. Anyway, I'm not sure I could have taught them anything. So that would be anyway, Clover, so lovely to talk to you.
Really, really nice. Yeah. Thank you very, very, very much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. It's been really, really nice.
Brilliant. And anyway, anyone that hasn't read the first book, they've got to read it because I was rather pleased I read it second in a way. Because anyway, I love both of them. Anyway.
Well, thank you
very, very so much. Lovely to talk to you, and hopefully see you after this lockdown.
Yes. That would be lovely. That would be really lovely.
All right. I'm going to save it for IGTV.
Oh, yes. That would be brilliant. And that would be great.
Okay. All right. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Lots of love. Take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.